Cause she's an itty bitty spider with an itty bitty lighter that she might just come from. She's a snake crawling, creeping on the floor. If you give her time of day, baby, that's your first mistake. She will swallow you whole for you know.
Yeah, that's my intro. Sometimes when I'm doing these videos, I get really excited to talk about what I'm about to talk about. And today we're going to be dealing with the Awaken abilities. We're going to be focusing on 3 particular type abilities, but we're going to probably cover all of the abilities that you will find currently. And we're going to see some of the ones that are applying to multiple heroes, but in a different form. For instance, it might be the same ability, but it's for drivers. They have one hero that does it for drivers, one that does it for fighters, one that does it for shooters. First, when we get to these abilities, I want to say I'm really, really pissed off about Lilith's ability. Her Awaken ability should have been maybe the best ability in there, her and Minsky, because of how much it costs in order to, really utilize these 2 heroes. And her ability is increase the shooter damage by 1% for each shooter hero deployed in our troop. That pisses me off. That really pisses me off. That means it's a 5% max. Possibly if the helper hero also applies 6%. You know what I mean? 6%. This is because from what we know, when you're doing a siege or you're doing a territory defense, only the leaders, heroes count in that. So it really just pisses me off. Unless they drop off a few more heroes that have that same ability and you're putting all 5 of them, she's going to max out at 6. Speaking of the helper heroes, since I mentioned it, I do want to give you guys a head up with the helper heroes. You see how my barrack says 2, 3, 1, 4, 5. So of course 1 is barrack 1. So, and this is important because if you're going to put a helper hero, and say for instance, despite having it lined up like that, I click on the first one and I go to formations, it's going to go to the first formation. If I tried to add a helper hero here, it's actually going to be inside my second barracks. It's not going to be in my first. Even despite hitting the first barrack that I have here, despite when I go to formation and it's long in my first troops, because I went into the second barrack and put the helper hero there, it's going to be in my second barracks. That's something important to learn, because if you make a mistake and you put the wrong helper hero in the barrack, and you start upgrading that hero, and then you say, oh man, this ain't the barrack I want him in. This will help clear up the confusion part. But also when you remove that hero, all the points you invested in that hero is lost. It's not like the other places, like the helper beast where you could reset. It's not like that. You lose those points that you invest in it. Maybe they'll fix that and change that at a later date, but currently, whatever points you invest into your helper hero, you lose those points if you remove that hero. So that's just, while I'm here, I'll cover that right there. So, but like I said, I'm pissed off. It's just a lot of investment into Lilith for her to have just one of the wackest Awaken abilities of all the ones here. So I'm really pissed off about that. It's another reason why I'll probably focus on building a fighter team. I've also moved away from mixed teams and going to full teams, because what you're seeing is as the stats start to add up on all these different teams, people are maxing out the max potential of the attack. You're seeing 500 and 600, maybe even 700% in just the attack column, whether they're coming with shooters or they're coming with fighters. They're coming with that high of a number. When it's that high of a number, you got to try to meet them with 8. You got to fight fire with fire, man. So, the Awaken ability does change a lot of how the dynamics of a battle. You face somebody that has one Awaken hero in there, man, and it really has an effect on the battle. So that's something that you guys want to stay aware of. The next group we want to focus on Leila and Slash. Leila and Slash have unique ability. They're the only two with this so far. I love it. And the difference between them is Layla's applies to shooters, Slash applies to fighters. However, we both know that you can't use generic shards on them, so it's going to be a while before people get a chance to max out these two heroes. Well, the game will definitely give a way to be able to get these shards at a later date. My Layla is almost finished. I have two more upgrades on the first skill. And then she'll be ready to start using these going into Awakening. But still, just acquiring the shards for her is extremely difficult. But when shooters are in the troop, I mean, whenever you have shooters in there, enemy troops will be inflicted with the Pierce effect, and their defense will be reduced by 30%. If you lose all shooters during the battle, this skill will stop taking effect. So that last sentence is very important because it's going to mean that you want to go with as many shooters as possible in this type of battle. It also means you're not going to want to mix Leila and Slash together. You know what I mean? Because you can do it and get a 60% reduction to all the enemy troops and hopefully just kill off all their troops before they can kill off either all your shooters or all your fighters. But as I was saying, it's both on Leila and Slash, and it's a very, very, very dope skill to be able to have. Slash on is for fighters. When fighters are in the troop, enemy troops will be inflicted with the Slash effect, and their defense will be reduced by 30%. If you lose all fighters during the battle, the skill will stop taking effect. One of the reasons why this is such a dope skill is because the Pierce, or this in this particular case, Slash effect, it affects all of the enemy troops. That means whether they sit in fighters, shooters, or drivers, it affects all of them. So that's a very important skill to have. I love those two skills. It's a shame it's going to be damn near next to impossible to finish off the skills on these two because they do not take generic shards. But if you get there, those are probably the dopest two skills that I've seen, the Awaken abilities that I've seen. The next one is going to apply to Vicky, Alexa, and Larry. Vicky is a shooter, Alexa and Larry both drivers, and what they do is they increase the damage by 1% every single round. And this is probably one of the best skills. The rounds of a battle. I don't know if you check to see how many rounds battles go, but you could see some of the siege battles going for a very long time, 150 rounds sometimes, or more. Yeah, that's a lot of losses. This guy Tamaris on my server is a beast. This is going to say, because this is when you get to see the hero skill release, and they still got hero skill releasing in around 148. It could be going more rounds after that, but here we are at 148 rounds. So at 100 round, you're at what, 15%? You know what I mean? You're at probably like 15%. That's a 15% increase to damage for shooters and for Alexa and for Larry, for drivers. 15% increase in the damage. That's every 8 rounds. So that's a very big number. And if you go ahead and you did it with Alexa and Larry and put both of them in there, that's 30%. And once you get to like 100 round, that's 30% that's happening. If you're doing it with a driver's team, which is another topic dealing with these drivers. You start to see a lot of people using driver teams. I'm still not sold on drivers teams, but when you look at the Awaken ability of Alexa and Larry, it kind of makes a really good case for it. That 30% is a lot. If you can go ahead and get both of them maxed out, so those are some of the best skills that you're really going to see inside of the game. And there are some other skills that we're going to take a look at, and we're going to compare them to the skills that I already mentioned. So everybody know one of my favorite heroes is Susanna. Even though she's a support hero, fighter hero, I love the extra troops that she brings into the battle. And her skill is that after releasing the skill, the hero will intimidate the enemy shooter, reducing the damage dealt by 20% for 1 round. Here's the thing with that. It's after releasing her skill. And you'll find that amongst many of the different heroes is that their Awaken ability doesn't take effect until they release their skill. What do they mean by release their skill? When you click on the 4th skill at the bottom, this is a skill release. When remaining soldiers reduced to 70%, gets immune to skill damage 2 times. Immunity effects of different levels can be stacked. So that's a very dope ability. I'm going to show you that she releases it a lot of times, which makes it a little bit confusing when you look at the wording, because the wording says for her skill is that when it gets down to 80%. But you can see that very first round, she releases her firm stand, right? And because she released her firm stand, she releases that firm stand 3 times in that round. 3 times, you know what I mean? So, but the Awaken ability skill releases just that once in that round. This is the first round. Susanna, she automatically released that firm stand. And allies gain immunity 3 times. It's a total of 7 times that allies gained immunity. And she released her Awaken skill. You'll see that was in round 1. And then in round 3, she releases the firm stand again. You know what I mean? And wounded level 10 shooters, yada, 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 troop attack. And then Susanna releases Awaken skill and intimidate enemy shooters, reducing their damage dealt by 20% for a round. And then check to see if she releases it again right here in round 9, which is 6 rounds later. The Awaken skill gets released again. Round 15, releases again. So you can see this is a pretty dope ability. It's like, you know, every 3 to 6 rounds, she's gonna be lowering the shooter damage by 20%. You know, so it's a very dope ability. So I do like it. Susanna is still one of my favorites, and this is one of the reasons why. So to me, 2 of the wackest abilities in my Awaken abilities, in my opinion, comes from some of the players who gets very little use by me. I see a lot of people are using them, and I know why. I understand it. I'm not a hater of these heroes, but when you go to Ivan, we'll start with Ivan. His ability is when fighters and the troops get attacked, the hero has a 35% chance to lead fighters to counterattack the attacker, dealing damage equal to 50% of fighter attack. It can be triggered up to 5 times in a battle. They limit how many times this could be triggered. 5 times. You know what I mean? And you only get a 35% chance of it even happening. It's just whack, man. That's whack. Damage equal to 50% of the fighter attack. Fighters have the lowest attack of all the 3 different troops. You know what I mean? So Ivan's ability, I know people like to utilize him, you know, because he increases the fighter defense. But, and, you know, I don't even know what else to say. I'm just not a fan of him. I'm not a fan of that ability. The 35% chance is trash. And it does not raise him in my book. And anything, it decreases his usability to me. That's how I feel about him. Next up is dealing with Hawkins and Orrick. These are 2 other heroes I don't really utilize a lot. And after releasing the skill, the hero has a 50% chance to release this skill on the same target again. Can be triggered up to 1 time in a round. My only problem with it is it should be guaranteed counterattack. You know what I mean? You only could do it once per round. and is after releasing his skill anyway. So, you got every time he releases his skill, he got a probability that he might get a chance to release his skill on the same target. And I believe he has like slash damage or something like that, which is even worse. I mean, splash damage or something like that, because, yeah, troop attack. I mean, well, there's 30% splash damage to enemies. Enemies in the back row. You know what I mean? Enemies in the back row. That's probably going to be more than likely fighters. It's probably more likely he's going to be doing that to fighters. But whoever's in the back row. Not all troops, but just be able to do double his move, which is 35% splash damage to enemies in the back row. I mean, he'll be causing 70% damage to enemies in the back row. He has a 50% chance of doing that. Same thing with Hawkins. Where's this guy at? Yeah, it's the same type of move Hawkins have as well for his Awaken ability. When the skill Guns Blazing deals splash damage to the enemy troops, and additional splash damage will be triggered. Oh, I didn't catch that before. So his will be triggered. This is what Orrick should have had. He should have had one where it will be triggered. 100% guaranteed chance that his splash damage will get triggered. So that brings Orrick up for me. That definitely brings him up the ladder for me. Because even though he's only hitting the back row, at least he it will be triggered every single time. Not only will it be triggered every single time, it doesn't have a minimum of one time per round. So Hawkins is definitely better than Orrick. And both of them are better than Ivan. Similarly, in their same predicament is going to be Veach. The difference between him is not it's not dropped down to every one round. It's still, whenever he releases his skill, a 50% chance to become concentrated, doubling the skill damage dealt. And for me, which made his a little bit better, is that at the beginning of the battle, he pounces on the enemy once, additionally dealing 50% damage. So, like, I know a lot of people have taken that to mean that he only does it when the battle first starts in the first round, but it doesn't. I'll prove it to you here. Round 1, Veach releases flash strike, triggering pounce effect to attack extra once at the beginning, dealing 312,982 damage to enemy and wounding level 1 fighters, 2, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, he's doing his flash strike and triggering his pounce. There also, again, he does it again in round 3. Didn't mean to do that. He does it again in round 3. Does it again in round 9. Does it again in round 15. He's consistently triggering his flash strike. And this is how many times he's going to have the ability to have 50% chance of using his Awaken ability. So, like, Veach is on a higher, because he has a 50% chance of doubling it. And he's doing a pounce, which is before anybody starts attacking in these rounds that he's releasing his ability, he's pouncing, causing damage before they can even attack. And if he has his Awaken ability, he has a 50% chance of doing that twice to them before they even hit. That's what makes Veach's his Awaken ability better than the chance for Hawkins and Ivan. I mean, for Orrick and Ivan. You know, Hawkins is the best out of them because he's going to do it every single time. One of the people who I gave 3 in the beginning, I highlighted 3, but one of the people who I should have highlighted that I forgot about, I don't like his skill either, is Gorky. It's Gorky. His Awaken ability is just, You know what I mean? When 50% of the soldiers and the enemy troops die, fighters gain encouragement and deal 10% more damage. When 50% of the soldiers and the enemy troops die. It depends on how they interpret that, man. But when 50% of them die, sounds like when they lose half their troops, your fighters get 10% more damage. 25% or higher, I probably would be excited about that skill. But 10%, I am not excited about that skill. I'm not excited about that skill at all. Yelena, she has the ability to increase fighter damage. After releasing the skill, the hero will curse the enemy fighter, increasing their damage taken by 20% for 1 round. Driver heroes. So, one of the things I do want to say, I see people are building these drivers team. I'm still not totally convinced on drivers, but I see a setup with Yelena, Alexa, Larry. I see a setup forming in which they could be very, very effective. Alexa, she also have the added extra troops. And when you see the Awaken ability and you awaken them, you can really see a formation of how you can really put together a really good driver team, especially one that's going to at the very least be able to counteract the fighter teams that are out. So we got to go over Lanny and Molina's who have a 20% skill to shooters and drivers, separate, depending on which one you're going to go with. Lanny, her say, and the round of release and firm stand increases our shooter damage by 20%. Awesome skill. Her problem is she does not take generic shards, so it's going to take her a while to be able to finish her ability. Even though you're able to collect her shards a lot easier now. Molina has a similar ability. Again, another driver hero. You can see why it's gonna you could put together a really good driver team. In the round of releasing flash strike, our drivers charge against the enemy, increasing driver damage by 20%. So what I like about this skill in particular is that it's just increasing the damage. This damage that's being increased, meaning that troop, the driver troop, is going to have more damage, and it can utilize that damage against any other troop that it is facing. It's not just particularly only affecting fighters or only drivers. Typically affect shooters. So this skill will be applied, giving extra damage to all the other troops on the other side. It's one of the reasons why I do like this troop. And those are pretty much all of the, I believe I mentioned everyone that has an Awaken ability. And those are the Awaken abilities that we see so far. I'm looking forward to seeing what they release next. I'm going to have to put out a new tier list, taking into consideration the Awaken ability, because they are having a great effect on the game. Before I awakened Susanna, if anybody had, especially if they had 2, but if they had 1, it was very difficult for me to be able to break their defense when they were holding a territory. If they had just 1 Awaken hero, 2, forget about it. Forget about it. You know what I mean? The Awaken ability is very, very, very important. They actually gave drivers a chance. I think that drivers have the best combination of Awaken abilities that will give them a little edge. I think they needed it. I think this is part of the driver resurgence, bringing them back into having a relevancy inside the game. And it's working because of the way their abilities can work together and really cause a lot of havoc on whatever troops it's going against. So, this is part of the reason for it. And, this is what's going on. We had a lot of things that occurred inside the game, man. Like this last update, man. Did you look at the language as to what they were saying? They mentioned the helper hero, unlock hero awaken ability for the new people. This isn't the one, right? No. Oh, yeah, this is it. Okay, let me see something. It says improve battle calculation logic, After the update, the higher the number of high-level soldiers in the Lord's March, the higher the damage the hero can deal. That should have already been the case, but the fact that it wasn't the case before and it is now, for me, I've always go by having the most troops. That's very important. That's always been important to me, overpowering by just having more troops. But the fact that they really honed in on that and made that something that they optimized, it was very important to me, and it's going to be a game changer for a lot of people. New quick update function for Helper Beast. Lords can upgrade their Helper slot to the highest level achievable at that time. Optimized for rules for determining victory and defeat and Dawn Guard. I'm going to try that out and see what's going on with there. So, yeah, so they mentioned that, and that was pretty big. They released Craig. Already have him, one of the things that happened with Craig was they released the every time they get one of these, then they release these packs. What's the name of the pack? What was it? Is that? Oh yeah, there you go, right there. The Craig supply chest. They released that, and then after 2 or 3 days of that, they released a $5 bundle where you could just get Craig immediately. Just telling you guys that because when he comes to your server, they may do the same thing. So I wound up getting this, and then I ended up having to pay, which is only $5, but then I had to pay the other $5 because I was able to get him right then and there, and I wanted to hurry up. I ain't got no patience. Hurry up and start working on his wardrobe. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So that's what happens. So pay attention when it comes to when he's come on your server. They release him for you to be able to get him. That you go ahead and you give it a couple of days before buying that supply, the correct supply crate. And instead, you just wait it out for a couple of 2 to 3 days and be able to buy him straight out for the same price instead of having to wait the 5 days. I'm pretty sure they're going to do the same thing to you guys they did on my server. A lot of us end up doing that same thing. A lot of us end up doing the same thing, end up having to pay $10 when we only really wanted to pay $5. So, like, comment, rate, subscribe.